When I was 10, my brother Ion was 16. He was my hero, always protecting me from bullies, sharing his food when I forgot mine, and even walking me to school every morning. We were poor, but he made our small world feel rich with laughter. One winter morning, I noticed Ion's shoes had holes in them. He said it was fine, that he liked the fresh air. But I knew he was lying. He'd been saving every bit of money he earned from his part-time job, not for himself, but to buy me a warm jacket. One day, I overheard him telling our mother, "I can manage with these old shoes, Amma. Let's buy her a new coat. She's just a kid." My heart broke. That night, I placed my tiny savings, just a few coins, under his pillow with a note, "Buy new shoes, buy. Please." He never mentioned it, but the next week, he came home with new shoes, not for himself, but for me. He said, "They had a discount, so I got these for you." I cried quietly because I knew he'd lied again. Years passed. He moved to another city for work. We didn't talk much, life got busy. But one day, I got a call, he had met with an accident. I rushed to the hospital, and there he was, unconscious. On the chair beside his bed, I saw an old, worn-out pair of shoes. His same habit, he'd never bought anything for himself. After he recovered, I told him everything, how I knew his sacrifices, how I hated those shoes because they reminded me of all the times he chose me over himself. He smiled weakly and said, "If those shoes could walk you to a better life, I'd wear them forever." Now, years later, I keep those old shoes in a glass box on my shelf. They remind me that love isn't in gifts or money, it's in quiet sacrifices that often go unseen. Years had passed since Ion's accident. Life had changed, but one thing hadn't, his quiet selflessness. After his recovery, he worked day and night to support our family, making sure I finished college, even when it meant skipping his own meals. I got a good job in another city, and he always said, "Don't worry about me. Just live the life I couldn't." For years, I believed him. But deep down, a guilt stayed inside me like a shadow. He had given up everything so I could rise. Now it was my turn to do something for him. One evening, I came home to visit him. Our house looked smaller than I remembered, and Ion looked thinner, his hair sprinkled with gray. He smiled when he saw me. "You look like a city woman now," he teased. But I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. His shoes were still old, cracked at the sides, the same habit that never changed. I hugged him tightly and said, "This time, I brought you something." He laughed. "Is it your fancy chocolates again?" "No," I whispered, "it's a surprise." A few days later, I took him on a trip without telling him where we were going. We drove for hours until we reached a quiet neighborhood. There stood a small, neat house with white walls and a garden full of marigolds, his favorite flower. He looked at me, confused. "Whose house is this?" I handed him the keys and said, "Ours." "Yours, the home you always dreamed of." For a long moment, he didn't speak. His hands trembled as he held the keys. Then, in a shaky voice, he said, "You didn't have to." "I did," I interrupted, tears welling in my eyes. "All my life, you gave me everything you could. You went hungry so I could study. You walked miles in broken shoes so I could wear new ones. You built my world, let me build yours now." He broke down and hugged me like he used to when I was little. "You're still that little girl who saved coins for my shoes," he whispered. We sat in the garden for hours, just talking, about our childhood, our struggles, our dreams. And for the first time, I saw him relax. He looked happy, really happy. That night, I placed his old shoes, those same torn ones, by the door of the new house. He laughed when he saw them. "You still kept them. They're not just shoes," I said softly. "They're your story. And now, they finally have a place to rest." He smiled, eyes glistening. "Then I guess, little sister, so do I." And as the sun set behind our new home, I realized something: love comes full circle. Sometimes it begins with old shoes and ends with a key, but it always walks the same path, one heart giving to another. 5 years passed after I gifted Ion his new home. Life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. I visited him every weekend, and each visit felt like coming home to a piece of my childhood. The marigolds in the garden bloomed brighter every year, just like his smile whenever he saw me walk through the gate. But time, as always, had its own plans. One winter morning, I received a call from his neighbor. Ion had been taken to the hospital. My heart dropped. I rushed there as fast as I could, praying he'd greet me with his usual teasing grin. When I arrived, he was lying still, eyes closed, machines humming softly beside him. The doctor said his heart had grown weak. Years of stress and silent sacrifices had left unseen scars. I held his hand and whispered, "Bye, please wake up. You promised you'd walk me down the aisle someday." His fingers twitched slightly, and in a faint voice, he said, "You always wanted me to rest, maybe I'll finally listen now." Tears blurred my vision as I begged him not to talk like that. But he smiled weakly and whispered, "You gave me everything, little sister. You gave me peace." 2 days later, he was gone. I stayed in his house for days, unable to leave. Every corner held his presence, the chair by the window, his favorite mug, his old shoes still near the door. While cleaning his room, I found a small wooden drawer at the bottom of his cupboard. Inside was a folded piece of paper, yellowed with time. My hands trembled as I opened it. It was a letter addressed to me. Greater than, "My dearest sister. If you're reading this, it means I've finally stopped pretending to be strong. Don't cry. I had a good life because I got to see you succeed, to see you smile. Every sacrifice was worth it. You gave me a home when I had none, love when I thought I'd lost it, and dignity I could never afford. Promise me one thing, live freely. Laugh without guilt, and never forget, your brother is proud of you, always." By the end of the letter, my tears had soaked the ink. I held it close to my heart, feeling as though his voice still lingered in the room. That night, I sat in the garden among the marigolds and looked at the stars. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. Years later, I turned his home into a shelter for children who had no families. I named it, Ion's Haven. On the front door, I placed a small glass box, inside it were his old, worn-out shoes. Visitors often asked, "Why keep those?" And I'd smile softly and say, "Because those shoes walked 1,000 miles for love." Every evening, when the sun sets over the marigold garden, I still feel him there, his laughter in the breeze, his warmth in the golden light. Ion may have left this world, but his love never did. It lives on in every step I take, and in every heart that finds a home at Ion's Haven.